There we go. It's Bert and Toby here once again to talk about the polarizing fight of Ben Askren versus Jake Paul. What does this fight interest you at all, Bert?
Yeah, I mean, this wrestling match is going to be great. I mean, this boxing match is going to be great.
Exactly. It's kind of interesting. You're taking a guy that is an MMA fighter with, from what you can see, it looks like he's got virtually zero boxing competence, and he's going to go up against someone that's kind of in the learning stages of boxing. Very interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of weird because I believe Jake Paul also has a wrestling background, doesn't he? He was a decent wrestler, I think. I don't know much about his background, but it's kind of weird to see a different evolution of like skills. Obviously, if Jake Paul was doing MMA for as long as Ben Askren was, you'd see a tremendous difference in his stand-up ability. But Askren's been fighting in mixed martial arts, doing MMA for a while now, but it just looks like he's never boxed before. It's weird.
I'm finding it really difficult to think of like logically what will happen. I think that's what's so interesting about the fight, because you got to think, like, on paper, you look at a guy that's fought MMA like 20 plus times and been a champion in two organizations. You got to think that he's going to have some sort of skill set. But then when you look at the videos that are circulating, you look at Jake Paul, who's hitting pads crisply and strong, and he's knocking sparring partners out. And then you flick over to Ben Askren. Looks like he's never been taught the box or something. He's like paddling the focus mitts, and he's got a bit of wrestling thrown in there, I guess, but he's not really hitting with nothing that looks like it's a credible boxing punch or anything with a bit of power. So I'd like to think on paper, yeah, of course, the MMA guy's going to take it because of the experience, but I'm really struggling to see how he could take it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have a question about this, but you'll probably have more insight about this because you've been to a lot more gyms than I have. But if somebody comes in at Ben Askren's age and he has such a superior level of wrestling to a lot of guys he's going to be fighting, and he's winning like that, do the coaches kind of roll with that and say, hey, we know that stand-up is not your forte, so we're going to kind of bag that a little bit. We'll do a little bit of defensive, but let's just keep you doing what you're good at, to where he ends up fighting for years, neglecting his stand-up the whole time? Is that a possibility that could have happened?
Yeah, well, it was working for him, wasn't it? So every punch he's throwing is just a setup to engage in a grapple or during a grapple situation. So it works in MMA, but I can't see it working in the boxing ring. Like, I'm trying to think, like, I want the guy that's experienced and a real fighter to win. I really want him to, but I just don't know how he can when you're doing it under boxing rules. I don't know how Askren can get the win, because you got to think he's got to score like clean strikes to really amass any points whatsoever. He's not going to win by knockout, or it's very unlikely he's going to win by knockout. You can't win by a guy being tired, even if you're throwing little pitter patter punches. So I don't know how Askren can win. He's boxing under boxing rules, and he's got to score points somehow. His punches don't seem like he's going to be landing them cleanly enough to really be scoring points. If he's engaging in the wrestling and grappling to an extent, and in close fighting, he might be able to score some light punches, but I can't really see how he can cleanly score nice punches that would enable him to win on points or to exhaust Jake Paul so much that he's not going to be able to fight on. It's finding it really hard to see.
Do you know how many rounds they're going to have for this fight?
Well, Askren was saying he wants to take him out in a 7, so I'm not sure if it's an 8 or a 10 round. We'll have to have a look and see.
Well, yeah, the things that I saw was it seemed like it didn't even seem like he was throwing real combinations. It was kind of like almost his MMA striking, where he does a couple strikes and then moves to close the distance. But what is he in MMA? He's closing the distance to grapple. But in this boxing situation, is he closing the distance to do what? Is he planning on trying to crowd him and put his weight on him and do that consistently enough to control the action to where he can end up making Jake Paul tired? I don't know. And it kind of depends how the ref's going to respond to that. Because you saw, like, if we do Mayweather and McGregor example, obviously that's a much higher level fight, but every single time they got into a clinch for just a second, the ref separated them. So being that this is such a far level below that, are they going to allow more clinching and hitting on the inside? I don't know. Or would it be even less than that?
Yeah, Ben Askren, in an interview that I watched, was saying that he, like I said, he plans to take him out in the seventh, or in either make him quit, or that, what he said was he thought he might be able to make him quit on the stool or just give up in the seventh round and not want to fight anymore. I don't know how that's going to work, against a young fit guy that's been training. Yeah, I think it's a kind of not the best game.
If he's if his cardio, let's say his cardio is far superior and his toughness is far superior, and he just bulldog rushes him and just will not let up on the pressure, and he's just go 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 go, to where Jake Paul's, he's still an amateur level boxer. The pressure overwhelms him and he loses technique, and he's just not really able to move the way that he wants to because he's not used to having that much pressure. Then I could see maybe something like that happening, but I just don't know if Ben Askren has the skill in boxing to put the pressure on that hard without also getting hit.
Yeah. I feel like his experience may enable him to shut him down a little bit. He might be able to get in tight and work close range. But the problem that I see is, how's he going to score points when he doesn't seem to really be able to punch very well. Whereas Jake Paul, even if then they're engaging in the clinch on the way in, he's going to throw some nice crisp punches. He looks like he's got an okay uppercut. I think he'll throw some like traditional sort of boxing punches that would score him points. So even if he gets crowded at points and he's wrestling in tight, he's going to land some clean shots and maybe take the rounds anyway. So yeah, I'm not so sure about whether it's going to work for Askren. Yeah,
for me, it's kind of I don't know. When I first heard about it, I was thinking, oh, well, Askren will certainly win this. He must. Just my logic kicking in, like he must. This is a YouTuber coming in here against a world champion MMA guy. But then when I see his pure striking, it's just it's worrisome to the point where it's almost embarrassing, because if he loses, I feel like it makes the sport look really bad, because it's like, oh, this is a world champion in more than one organization. He fought in the UFC, and now this amateur guy just knocks him out in boxing. And it's like, it's bothersome, because Ben Askren is obviously nowhere near the best that MMA has as far as boxing goes. He's probably like one of the worst possible ones, actually.
And that's why it's the perfect matchup for Jake Paul. He can fight someone with such a high credentials. It was even an Olympian wrestler, right?
Yeah, it's like there's nothing to lose for him. It's like,
fighting an Olympic wrestler who's been an MMA champion in two different organizations and fought in UFC, and he's just had, I think it's 3 boxing fights, 2 professional and 1 extra one, and he's coming in and fighting someone at that level with such a decent name. Yeah, he doesn't have much to lose, and physically slightly more imposing to me. I think he's a little bit heavier. He stands a little bit taller. His reach is a little bit longer, and he's quite a bit difference in age. I think he's like 10 to 12 years younger. So the thing of wearing him out, like, he hasn't been worn out before. That's what I hear a lot of pros saying. He's a young guy. He doesn't have the experience to really know what it feels like to go into deeper waters, but he's young, and he would have been training like a beast to have the cardio to last those rounds, or he wouldn't have taken the fight. Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to happen. He's going to drag him into the waters.
Obviously, as most people know that that have been in those situations, the training is a lot. I'm curious what the level of training is, because like as an amateur, you're going into box other amateur guys. You're not training in the same way that the pros are training. So hot water for an amateur is likely a lot different than hot water for a pro. So, or getting in deep water. So I understand that argument. I'm curious to see it. Obviously, I don't know, because we haven't seen Jake Paul a whole lot, but I know that Ben Askren will keep going, I guess, unless he gets landed with a flying knee, which isn't going to happen. So
I think
he might be able to raise that level of pressure on him to where it is such a different level than what he's used to, that maybe it's effective.
I think if he can, like for Askren, if he gets through the initial rampage that Jake Paul's going to throw, he's going to throw some heavy shots from the outside and try and stop him. If he can get through that, which he's got a pretty good chance, because he's got a very strong chin. He's known for having a good chin, except for when he meets knees. He's got a strong chin, and he's got the grapple and the drive to push through adversity and everything. So he's got a good chance of, if he can get through that first round to tire Jake Paul out so that Jake Paul's punches don't have the same effect anymore. And then it's not as dangerous and he can work a little bit more and move a little bit more. He's got decent head movement too, in a way, better than Jake Paul probably, because he's obviously been doing MMA for some time. He does have some head movement. But can he really, once he gets to that point, let's say the best case scenario for him, he gets through the first round or two, he's engaged him in a grapple, it's taken the sting out of the punches, but then what? What's he going to win with these little pitter-patter punches? Like, how's he going to win that way? I struggle to think how he can win, even though I'd like him to win.
You know what? That reminds me a while ago. So Matt Hughes, when he was fighting, was obviously never a good boxer, and his stand-up just looked like dog do a lot of the time. But then in this one fight, I can't remember which one it was, but it was coming back it was towards the end of his career, and he got somebody injured, and he threw this wicked combination up against the fence, and it just looked like he was a world-class striker in that one moment where he was just able to unload and be natural without worrying about being hit because he had the guy injured. So it could be one of those things where Ben Askren is like really awkward because he is paranoid about being hit because he knows that his stand-up isn't where it should be. And then once he sees Jake Paul wilting, maybe as he's getting more tired, he's able to open up a little bit more, and maybe he'll become more natural as he gets more comfortable with his stand-up. That might be a far-fetched idea, but that's like cross the fingers, maybe.
I just can't imagine. I mean, I really hope he does. And when you look at Jake Paul in his last couple of fights, he is an amateur. He moves like an amateur. He's not doing anything amazing. The standout, I would say, is that he's got hard, heavy punching. So I guess that's his key, the range and the hard, heavy punching. You know, if he can maintain that for a few rounds, he's going to get it.
You think so? I don't think he'll be able to keep that. I just don't think Ben Askren's going to let him keep that range. I think he's going to try to do his pressure thing. I just don't know if it's going to work, but I think it's going to be an awkward fight.
Oh, definitely. It's like they say about fighting someone like Dominic Cruz. You know, you can't prepare for a guy like that. It's going to be impossible for him to prepare for this style that Ben Askren seems to have when he's hitting mitts.
What he does with his wrapping.
How do you prepare for that? I don't know. So he's going to be trying to go in there with this real orthodox. He's probably not so adaptable yet because he's only at the early stages of his boxing. So he's not going to be as adaptable and able to change to a weird style like that. Like you said, he's never probably trained with a wrestler like that. So let's see. Yeah. So what's your take? What's your final prediction? But if you were betting on it, what would you bet on?
If I was betting on it, I mean, just out of pure hope and desire, I'm going to go with Ben Askren and hope it's one of those situations that afterwards we all are looking at each other like, well, yeah, that's what should have happened. It's a pro fighter versus an amateur. And when we see them together, something will stand out to where Askren dominates. But I think I've got a pipe dream that may not come true. So we'll see. I'm going to be real depressed if he gets beat up though.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm really frustrated with myself because I don't want to say it. Like, I don't want to say that I think Jake Paul's got a good chance of winning, but I'm just going to say Jake Paul. I just don't know how Askren can win when he can't really punch. Like, it's like trying to win a boxing match without being able to punch. I just don't think it's possible. Yeah, Jake Paul. I don't know how. Hopefully it goes a little bit longer than the first couple of rounds and we can see him dragged into deeper waters and see who really wants it. But I think I'm just going to go Jake Paul.
Yeah. So, one thing I will go with, though, if he wins this fight and now that kind of puts him into the category where, okay, well, your next guy has to be a real guy. He's going to lose the next one. Yeah. I don't know who it's going to be, but I say if he wins this one, he loses the next one.
We'll be more clear once we can see it. It's not like we can look at a history of his fighting to see how he's going to go. So after this fight, we're going to have more of an idea, whether it's fast or long. We'll have more of an idea and we can slowly build our ideas. But I'd love him to fight someone that actually has boxing credentials or actual boxing skills. So you take Diaz, you take Poirier, you take McGregor. I think if it was those guys, 100% I would be betting on them. I would say hands down, he's got no hope. But
yeah, that wouldn't even be fair though.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, they're actual pros in high level boxing. I think that would be more comical if he fought them. I mean, I'd watch it, but yeah, I don't know how he would possibly beat one of those guys.
True. All right. Thanks for your time, Bert. And catch you next time.
Peace out, Holmes.